Section 4 of Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Untrodden Peaks and Unfrequented Valleys. A Midsummer Ramble in the Dolomites. By Amelia B. Edwards. Section 4, Chapter 2, Venice to Longarone, Part 2. And now, time pressing, the day advancing, and 3/4 of the drive yet lying before us, we must push on, or Longarone will not be reached ere nightfall. So having been sufficiently stared at, not only by the population generally, but by the landlord and landlady and everybody connected with the inn, as well as by the domino players who leave their games to take part in the entertainment, we clatter off again and make straight for the rocky mouth of the gorge, now closing in upon, and apparently swallowing up, the long line of old stone houses creeping into the defile. Some of these, shattered and decaying as they are, show traces of Venetian Gothic in pointed ogave windows, and delicate twisted column. They belong no doubt to wealthy owners in the days when Titian used to ride over from Monza to visit his married daughter who lived at Serravalle. Where the houses end, the precipice is so close in that there is but just space for the road and the torrent. Then the gorge gradually widens through wooded slopes and hanging chestnut groves. Farmhouses and chalets, perched high on grassy plateaus, begin to look more Swiss than Italian. Mountains and forests all round shut in the view, and about 2 miles from Serravalle the Maschio expands into a tiny, green, transparent lake, tranquil as cloudless evening sky, and fringed by a broad border of young flax. A single skiff, reflected upside down as in a mirror, floats idly in the middle of the lake. The fisherman in it seems to be asleep. Not a ripple, not a breath, disturbs the placid picture in the water. Every hill and tree is there, reversed, and every reed is doubled. This delicious pool, generally omitted in the maps, is the Lago di Serravalle. Woods slope down to the brink on one side, and the road, skirting the débris of an old landslip, winds round the other. 2 tiny white houses with green jalousies and open Italian balconies at the head of the lake, a toy church on a grassy knoll, and a square mediaeval watch-tower clinging to a ridge of rock above, make up the details of a picture so serene and perfect that even Turner at his sunniest period could scarcely have idealized it. The gorge now goes on widening and becomes a valley, once the scene of a bergfall so gigantic that it is supposed to have turned the course of the Piave, flowing out till then by Serravalle, and to have sent it thenceforward and forever through the Val di Mel. This catastrophe happened ages ago, most probably in prehistoric times, yet the Great Barrier, 600 feet in height from this side, looks as if it might be less than a century old. Few shrubs have taken root in these vast hillocks of slaty débris, among and over which the road continually rises. Few mosses have gathered in the crannies of these monster blocks which lie piled like fallen towers by the wayside. All is bare, ghastly, desolate. As we mount higher, the outlying trees of a great beech forest on the verge of a lofty plateau to the right are pointed out by the driver as the famous Bosco di Consiglio, a name that dates back to old Venetian rule, when these woods furnished timber to the state. Hence came the wood of which the Bucentaur was built, and, who knows, perhaps the merchant ships of Antonio and the war galley in which blind old Dandolo put forth against the Turk. Presently, being now about 4 miles from Serravalle, and the top of the great bergfall not yet reached, we come upon another little green, clear lake, about the size of the last, the Lago Morto. It lies down in a hollow below the road, close under a huge sheer precipice blinding white in the sunshine, whence half the mountain side looks as if it had been sliced away at a blow. If it were not that the débris could hardly be piled up where and how it is, leaving that hollow in which the lake lies sleeping, one would suppose this to be the spot whence the rock slip came, what time it barred out the Piave from the gorge of Serravalle. According to the local legend, no boat can live upon those tranquil waters, and no bather who plunges into them may ever swim back to shore. Both are, in some terrible way, drawn down and engulfed deeper than ever did plummets sound. It is said, however, that the last Austrian governor of Lombardo-Venetia, being anxious to put an end to this superstition, brought up a boat from the Santa Croce side, and, in the presence of a breathless crowd from all the neighbouring villages, himself rowed the pretty wife of the Fadalto postmaster across the lake, and landed her triumphantly upon the opposite shore. Your Tyrolean peasant, however, is not easily disabused of ancient errors, and the Lago Morto, I am told, notwithstanding that public rehabilitation, enjoys its evil reputation to this day. At length, having the Bosco di Consiglio always to the right, and the Col Vicentino with its scattered snowdrifts towering to the left, we gain the summit of the ridge and see the lake of Santa Croce, looking wonderfully like the lake of Albano, lying close beneath our feet. Great mountains, all grey and purple crags above, all green cornfields and wooded slopes below, enclose it in a nest of verdure. The village and church of Santa Croce, perched on a little grassy bluff, almost overhang the water. Other villages and campaniles sparkle far off on shore and hillside, while yonder, through a gap in the mountains at the farther end of the lake, we are startled by a strange apparition of pale, fantastic peaks lifted high against the northern horizon. "Ecco!" says the driver, pointing towards them with his whip, and half turning round to watch the effect of his words. "Ecco I nostri Dolomiti!" The announcement is so unexpected that for the first moment it almost takes one's breath away. Having been positively told that no Dolomites would come into sight before the second day's journey, we have neither been looking for them nor expecting them, and yet there they are, so unfamiliar and yet so unmistakable. One feels immediately that they are unlike all other mountains, and yet that they are exactly what one expected them to be. "Che Dolomiti sono? Come si chiamano?" What Dolomites are they? What are their names? Are the eager questions that follow. But the bare geological fact is all our driver has to tell. They are Dolomites, Dolomites on the Italian side of the frontier. He knows no more, so we can only turn to our maps, and guess, by comparison of distances and positions, that these flustered aiguilles belong most probably to the range of Montes Fornioi. At Santa Croce we halt for half an hour before the door of an extremely dirty little albergo, across the front of which is painted in conspicuous letters, "Qui si vende buon vino a chi vuole." Leaving the driver and courier to test the truth of this legend, we order coffee and drink it in the open air. The horses are taken out and fed. The rider, grievously tormented by a plague of flies, makes a sketch under circumstances of untold difficulty, being presently surrounded by the whole population of the place, among whom are some 3 or 4 handsome young women with gay red and yellow handkerchiefs bound round their heads like turbans. These damsels are by no means shy. They crowd, they push, they chatter, they giggle. One invites me to take her portrait. Another wishes to know if I am married. A third discovers that I am like a certain Maria Rosa whom they all seem to know, whereupon every feature of my face is discussed separately, and for the most part to my disparagement. At this trying juncture L, in a moment of happy inspiration, offers to show them the chromolithographs in Gilbert and Churchill's book, and so creates a diversion in my favour. Meanwhile, the flies settle upon me in clouds, walk over my sky, drown themselves in the water bottles, and leave their legs in the brown madder. Despite all which impediments, however, I achieve my sketch, and by the time the horses are put to, I am ready to go on again. The road now skirts the lake of Santa Croce, at the head of which extends an emerald green flat wooded with light, feathery, yellowish poplars, evidently at one time part of the bed of the lake, from which the waters have long since retreated. From this point we follow the line of the valley, passing the smart new village of Cadola, and at Capo di Point, whence the valley of Serravalle and the Val di Mel diverge at right angles, come again upon the Piave, now winding in and out among stony hillocks, like the Rhone at Luc, and milk-white from its glacier source in the upper Dolomites. The old bridge at Capo di Point, the old bridge which dated from Venetian times, is now gone, and with it the buttresses adorned with the lion of St. Mark mentioned by Ball and alluded to in Mr. Gilbert's Cadore. Fragments of the ancient piers may yet be traced, but a new and very slight-looking iron bridge now spans the stream some 50 yards higher up. At Capo di Ponte, the most unscientific observer cannot fail to see that the Piave must once upon a time, most probably when the great bergfall drove its waters back from Serravalle, have here formed another lake, the great natural basin of which yet remains, with the river flowing through it in a low secondary channel. And now the road enters another straight and narrow valley, the valley of the Piave, closed in far ahead by a rugged Dolomite, all teeth and needle points. By this time the long day is drawing to a close. Cows after milking are being driven back to pasture, labourers are plodding homewards, and a party of country girls with red handkerchiefs upon their heads, wading knee-deep through the wildflowers of a wayside meadow, look like a procession of animated puppies. Then the sun goes down, the sky and the mountains turn cold and grey, and just before dusk sets we arrive at Longarone. A large rambling village with a showy Renaissance church and a few shabby shops, a big desolate inn with stone staircases and stone floors, a sullen landlord, a frightened barefooted chambermaid who looks as if she had just been caught wild in the mountains, bedrooms like barns, floors without carpets, windows without curtains, such are our first comfortless impressions of Longarone. Nor are these impressions in any wise modified by more intimate acquaintance. We dine in a desert of sitting room at an oasis of table, lighted by a single tallow candle. The food is indifferent and indifferently cooked. The wine is the worst we have had in Italy. Meanwhile, a stern and ominous look of satisfaction settles on the countenance of the great man whom we have so ruthlessly torn from the sphere he habitually adorns. "I told you so" is written in every line of his face, and in the very bristle of his moustache. At last, being dismissed for the night, and told at what hour to have the carriage round in the morning, he can keep silence no longer. "We shall not meet with many inns so good as this, where we are going," he says, grimly triumphant. "Good night, ladies," and with this parting shot retires. My bedroom that night measures 35 feet in length by 25 in breadth, and is enlivened by 5 windows and 4 doors. The windows look out variously upon street, courtyard, and stables. The doors lead endlessly to suites of empty, shut-up rooms, and all sorts of intricate passages. 'Tis as ghostly, echoing, suicidal a place to sleep in as I ever saw in my life. End of Section 4, Chapter 2, Part 2.